Chapter 649 Do something. If I'm not one of the descendants, so be it. Jumping into the dark abyss now is no different than jumping into it when it shifts here into the inner city. Besides, I was standing right beside the dark abyss at Shanxi, but the space vortex didn't suck me into the dark abyss. Perhaps that's a sign that I'm still a pure descendant of the tribe that moved to Bo City, said Zhang Xiaohou with a forced smile. If you're going, I'll go with you too, said Su Xiaoluo with determination. Howzy, are you sure about this? Mo Fan looked at Zhang Xiaohou grimly. Brother Fan, Zhang Xiaohou looked at Mo Fan. He suddenly choked with emotion as he continued to speak. So many people here are going to die. I just can't bear to watch it anymore. It's great to stay alive, when everyone's alive too. I don't actually know if the tradition that my family follows has anything to do with the villages, nor do I know if I still have the lineage after so many years. But if I only have 1,000th, or 1/10,000th, even if I don't even have a trace of it, I don't want to wait until the dark abyss devours the city. It's going to eat the people and all my friends. If the city is destroyed, and everyone is dead, but I somehow survive, I strongly believe that I'll just kill myself, because I could have saved everyone's life. When the place was covered in bones and ruins, especially when everyone he was close with had died right beside him while he alone had survived the calamity, he believed that he would not feel relieved at possessing the bloodline of Bo City, but he would forever live in self-condemnation and the shadows of his sin. Zhang Xiaohu's voice was shaking as he spoke. He had already witnessed how terrifying the dark abyss was. He strongly believed that the most painful way to die was jumping into it. He was scared. He had never faced fear like this before, yet the words he had spoken were of utmost sincerity. He had not made the decision because he wanted to show how great a person he was. He just did not want to be the left person alive, even if the chance was only 1,000th or 1/10,000th. It was better to die than to live like an empty shell. Zhang Xiaohu's words echoed under the clock, in the hearts of the people. Even the super magicians with cold faces were touched. Mo Fan was initially going to convince Zhang Xiaohou to change his mind, yet he was the one being convinced instead. Fang Jiyu, I've drunk the underground holy spring. Do you think I'll be fine jumping into the dark abyss? Mo Fan asked, looking at Fang Jiyu. I wouldn't know, but according to the information passed down to us, the underground holy spring of your Bo City should be a lot more effective than our water of Kun. Wait, did you drink it all by yourself? I think the undead in the dark abyss won't do any harm to you. The old ancestor is going to chop you into pieces himself, replied Fang Jiyu. Mo Fan, you're going to? Zhou Meng looked at him in great surprise. We're going to die either way. I would rather die trying. Well, we have candidates to jump into the dark abyss now, but the question is, how are we going to reach the dark abyss? Don't forget that the dark abyss is still a few kilometers away from the Yuan Gate. The undead across that distance is enough to stack into human pyramids, said Mo Fan. The question immediately puzzled the crowd. The question was on point. The dark abyss was located outside of the walls. The whole place was crawling with undead. It was already impossible to reach it. Zhu Meng snorted into his beard and said righteously, Humph, do you think we're just going to stand here and watch? We'll clear a path for you. Du Xiao declared, stepping forward. I already have a bet with Li Yujian. Whoever kills less undead is going to be the other person's servant in hell. We can start whenever. Let's do it. Elder Shi Zheng was a straightforward person, too. We're going to survive, but the bet still counts. Li Yujian responded. The spirit in Han Ji's eyes slowly recovered when he saw the authorities willing to contribute. The information had awakened their spirits after a long silence. He was only curious what Salin would be feeling right now. To prevent Salin from disrupting our plan, I'll personally escort them until we reach the dark abyss, said Han Ji. President, you're going too, said the mysterious man in astonishment. Salin is here among us. I believe with how vicious he is, he will surely try to murder them in the midst of chaos. I'll look after them. And I bet Salin won't have the courage to face me, said Han Ji in cold voice. He looked like a different person than before. All right, Since even the president is willing to fight together with us, what else could we say? Every person that was kept in custody just now will be going out. We'll leave a few men behind to guard the city, just in case the ruler undead suddenly decide to attack. Commander Yao Ting ordered. Zhang Xiaohou, well done, we're proud of you. Chief Military Instructor Fei Zhao patted Zhang Xiaohu's shoulder solemnly. The Dark Abyss will be shifting very soon. We'll have to organize the people responsible for clearing the path. We must escort them to the Dark Abyss. People, you are our only hope. If you succeed, you'll be heroes. If you fail, it won't matter much, either. We'll just gather and enjoy ourselves a grand meal in hell. This is more like it. The more depressed we are, the happier the Black Vatican will be. We won't let them have their way even if we're going to die. Screw the Black Vatican. Try fighting me on the bell tower now. I'll torture them until they beg for mercy. President, how about that Hu Jin? He's still kneeling there, said the mysterious man. That guy must be ready to die for Salin if he dared to show himself. Tie him to the clock. Let the whole city see his face, said the president. Knew he had indeed prepared to die for Salin. He simply knelt on the ground, like he was worshipping a god. He was completely insane. It was meaningless to even kill someone like him. It was better to tie him up first. Once they managed to resolve the situation, they would be sure to make him pay. The magicians proceeded to seal Mu He's mind and hang him on the clock with chains. However, Mu He was ready to sacrifice. He continued grinning madly and mumbling words about the festival, apotheosizing, Salin, god of death, and so forth, like a maniac. The people simply ignored him. Everyone shared the same goal now, and they would try their best to achieve it. Yao Ting, are these people all you can arrange? Asked Han Ji. These are the only ones available. We still need people to guard the city. Otherwise, if the safety barrier crumbles when we're out of the city, the undead will simply invade the inner city. The outcome is still going to be the same. He's right, we need enough men to defend the city, just so the Black Vatican won't be able to do much in the midst of chaos, said Lu Shu. It's nowhere enough. We won't be able to reach the Dark Abyss with this number, said the mysterious man. I've got a plan, but it might involve lots of sacrifices. Well, voluntary ones, said Shi Zheng. Everyone's expression changed when they heard Shi Zheng's suggestion. Some even shook their heads. However, Shi Zheng still insisted that it was the only way. I've made it clear. It's voluntary. We should gather the volunteers, and regardless of how many they are, we'll have to proceed with the plan. Time is running short. Then, we will tell them the truth. The commoners are weak. I doubt they would even volunteer. They are not magicians, after all. Chapter 650 The Resolution to Stay Alive. Han Ji was solely responsible for protecting Mo Fan, Zhang Xiaohou, and Fang Ji Yu. They were the only hope for the city. If they were killed on their way to the Dark Abyss, the whole city would die with them. They had reached an Yuan Gate. The golden barrier was a lot dimmer than it was before, the gold edged with brown. They could clearly see waves of foul breaths unleashed by the countless undead like raging tides, striking the golden barrier and the inner walls. The walls never stopped shaking. The golden barrier was swaying as waves after waves of undead collided on it. The presence of the undead was so overwhelming that the people could already feel the destruction even though they were standing inside the barrier. They somehow felt like they would simply be crushed into pieces by the breaths of the army of undead alone. Mo Fan gasped when he saw the horrifying sight once again. The sight of the army of undead here was already this terrifying. Would he really have the guts to jump into the Dark Abyss once he reached there? Strange. Why are there civilians among us? Fang Ji Yu frowned and pointed to where a huge crowd was coming toward them. The crowd mainly consisted of men. It arrived at the city north under the magician's guidance. The sky was now completely dark. They could barely see the dull expressions on the crowd's faces. Their pace was slow. Some were even wearing blank faces, like a group of criminals being escorted to the guillotine. Why did they call civilians here? Are they planning to bring them out of the city too? Said Su Xiaoluo in astonishment. That is the plan, said the mysterious man. Aren't they only going to get themselves killed? The undead will butcher them all with ease, yelled Zhang Xiaohou immediately. They will be going out through the small gate first to attract the undead's attention. The magicians will then exit through the northern gate and escort you to the dark abyss, said the mysterious man. My God, you're feeding them to the undead. How could you do such a thing? What different are you from the Black Vatican? Screamed Su Xiaoluo. Yeah, it's the magicians' responsibilities to protect them, yet to push them to the undead like that. Commander Yao Ting walked up when they saw the furious complaints. We didn't give them any order, nor did we force them to do it. They have all volunteered. Volunteered? Didn't they know they are simply going to die? Said Zhou Ming. They know that better than you. We've told everyone about the dark abyss, and the fact that the city will sink into hell before dawn. The magicians will sacrifice their lives for this final fight, so we hope that there are volunteers that are willing to attract the attention of the undead just so we can successfully escort you to the dark abyss. Their bodies will be torn beyond recognition. The undead will snap their heads off and suck their blood dry. However, when the people imagined the same thing happening to their families and kids, they decided to volunteer themselves as the bait instead. There are more people that volunteered than I thought, Commander Yao Ting said with a straight face. Why couldn't the civilians sacrifice, if the magicians were obliged to put their lives at risk? Yao Ting agreed that the plan was quite inhumane. The so-called voluntary was actually because the people did not have any choice, but the journey to the dark abyss was surely going to be a bloodbath. Many magicians were going to be sacrificed. Sorry for comparing you to the Black Vatican, Su Xiaoluo lowered her head and her voice. I didn't have to tell you this, but I hope you understand how many lives are at stake just to clear the path for you. Being fearless and courageous isn't enough. I want you to also have the resolution to carry the fate of the millions of people in this city. Sacrificing isn't necessarily the bravest act, and death is just an escape, running away from your responsibilities. Staying alive, endure the sufferings, fight with all you can for your goal. That is what we'll be impressed and grateful for the most, proclaimed Commander Yao Ting firmly. Don't keep on mentioning death all day. That is the act of cowards. Everyone had the right to live on, but they could also choose death. The night had just fallen. Dawn was far away. Choosing to live or die did not really decide how great a person was. The only thing was to calmly make the choice, knowing what you were carrying on your back. There was a small gate slightly to the east of the northern gate. The volunteers formed a crowd, lining up at the small gate. Those who were at the northern gate could see that the small gate that was previously shut had been opened. A super magician was leading the way, charging out of the protection of the golden barrier. The super magician was emitting a purple glow. The power of lightning blasted the pack of undead outside the gate and created a gap. Battle mages in uniforms rushed out from the gate. They stepped on the bodies of the undead and continuously tossed spells at the army of undead. The glow that the spells produced was barely visible under the dark breaths of the undead. Soon, the volunteers followed the battle mages rushing out of the safety barrier. They stood on the spacious land that had just been cleared by the magicians. They were wearing suits and smart bow ties. Some were tall and handsome, some looked fairly ordinary, yet each one of them was a piece of fresh meat with a savory aroma in the eyes of the undead. As the crowd grew larger, the presence of living humans immediately attracted the army of undead. They began to surge toward the small gate like rolling tides. The greedy zombies even crawled on top of their comrades who were lunging at the area. Not everyone will be eaten, right? Said Su Xiaoluo with a pale face. She had the urge to turn around just so she could not see the bloodshed anymore, yet she forced herself to watch it. She had decided to jump into the dark abyss. She had to know the burden she was carrying. Once we cross the army of undead, the battle mages will immediately escort them back into the city through the small gate. There will be lots of casualties, but the majority of the dead are going to be magicians. We're only relying on the volunteers to create a strong presence of living humans, to shift the attention of the undead stacked outside of the walls, replied the mysterious man. Mo Fan always thought he was a strong, heartless man, yet when he saw the commoners willing to clear a path for them by using themselves as bait, when he saw them being torn into pieces and their fresh blood splattering on the wall, it felt like his breathing had almost halted. The scene of blood and limbs flying everywhere showed him the resolution of the people in the city to stay alive. How could he possibly let them down? After adjusting his thoughts, Mo Fan shifted his attention back to the journey ahead. The number of undead did seem to ease up a little. If they were quick enough, they would be able to secure a head start of a kilometer. People heading to the dark abyss, prepare yourself. President Han Ji's voice echoed above the city that was drenched in the storm. Chapter 651 Slaughtering Wind / The tower on the walls was crowded with magicians, hunters, students, battle mages, imperial magicians, and basic, intermediate, advanced, and super magicians with lightning, water, fire, wind, light, and earth elements. "Vanguards, charge!" yelled Han Ji. As soon as the order was given out, 4 super magicians simultaneously beat their wings. The brilliance of the wings was so outstanding that even when they charged into the ocean of undead, the others could still see the magical glow coming from them. They dashed forward in 4 straight lines. The black ocean was clearly being split apart under the destructive force of the 4 super magicians, like 4 red carpets being laid on top of the black ocean, extending 500 meters into the distance. It was impossible to tell how many zombies stacked on top of one another were annihilated by the 4 super magicians. Most of them were blasted into nothing instantly. Following the 4 super magicians clearing the path as vanguards, the whole place suddenly turned blazing red. Raging flames poured down from the sky like rain. Each burst of flame was the size of a fist as it fell from the sky. The raindrops evaporated instantly in the heat. The stormy clouds were set aflame. An unknown number of fire imperial magicians had cast the advanced fire spell, Sky Flame Funeral, at the same time. As the rain of flame hit the ground, it turned the land occupied by the undead into a sea of fire, spreading wildly into the surroundings. "Let's go," said Han Ji, waving his hand, signaling the imperial magicians to move into a square-shaped formation with Mo Fan, Zhang Xiaohou, Fang Ji Yu, and Su Xiaoluo in the middle. They charged forward onto the land, flames all around them. The formation consisted of advanced magicians. Each one of them was drawing a brilliant star constellation. The intertwining star patterns accumulated boundless elemental energy. The wind magicians were the first ones to finish channeling. Green gusts of wind appeared around the square-shaped formation, rapidly transforming into a fierce wave that rolled across the flames and split the fiery ocean in half. As the zombies that were burned beyond recognition stumbled into the wind blades, they were cut into flying pieces and scattered across the place. The wind formed a raft under their feet. The rolling wave dragged the group forward. Mo Fan and his crew were dragged almost 500 meters ahead by the imperial magicians. The inner walls were far behind them within the blink of an eye. The number of skeletons significantly increased around 500 meters away from the inner city. The sinister white bones looked like powerful machinery. The skeletons still had space to move their limbs, as the place was not as crowded as where the zombies had been. As soon as they saw magicians trespassing into their territory, they immediately raised their weapons and charged at their enemies. The primary attack of the skeletons was the cold weapons they had created using their bones, gleaming bone swords, long and sharp bone sabers, fists like hammers that produced loud blasts when they slammed the ground, and long arms as sharp as spears, pikes and lances. The skeletons were of various sizes, but one could tell their age by observing the color and luster of their bones. Mo Fan's gaze passed the wall of imperial magicians ahead of him and discovered that there were lots of skeleton generals among the skeletons, to his dismay. Their bones were hard as steel, with icy reflections across the surface. Their eyes were the scariest, glaring at anything alive in hate and murderous intent. As they opened their mouths, it looked like their lower jaws were about to fall off. Their teeth without gums looked extraordinarily eerie. A skeleton official, its bones as reflective as a piece of steel, uttered a roar, ordering the army of skeletons to charge at their enemy. Be it those that leapt into the air, those that were charging straight at them, or those that fired their bones like arrows, there were simply too many of them, leaving them with no room to dodge the attacks. Water curtain, water curtain, water curtain, water curtain. The advanced water magicians simultaneously cast the advanced water spell. The brilliance of the blue star constellation reached a distance of 1 kilometer. Every imperial magician was encapsulated by the sacred blue light. Water curtains that looked like thin waterfalls surrounded the formation. The front, the back, the sides, the water curtains had formed a tiny safety barrier around the square formation, with no visible gap between the curtains. Mo Fan felt like he was being protected inside a watery boundary. The layers of water curtains prevented the skeletons from attacking. The barrier remained intact even when bone weapons were hurled at the water curtains. Even the attacks of the warrior-level skeletons were nullified by the water curtains. "Kill the skeleton official," Han Ji commanded in a stern voice. Mo Fan vaguely sensed a mysterious power of the shadow element disappearing from his side like an arrow, going right into the middle of the skeletons. It was easy to locate the skeleton official, due to its enormous size. Before Mo Fan could take a closer look at the super magician that was attacking at lightning speed, he heard a loud explosion from the direction of the skeleton official. The skeleton official's appearance was ugly and horrifying. Its shoulders were filled with skulls, like lumps on its skin. As the skulls fell off its body, its building-sized body exploded too. "I'll send you off once I clear the obstacles," a loud voice came from within the army of skeletons. Green wind blades appeared in all directions all of a sudden, at least 1,000 of them, slashing randomly among the skeletons. The explosions and flickers of solid air instantly killed thousands of skeletons. The bones were broken into pieces, fell to the ground, and stacked up into a thick layer of snow. When Mo Fan thought the spell had come to an end, the 1,000 blades that seemed to be scattered across the place suddenly gathered in the hand of the shadowy figure from before. 1,000 wind blades. Slaughtering wind slash. The shadow's aura grew tremendously. His hands were holding a sword made out of the wind blades that had slaughtered thousands of skeletons just a moment ago. The slashing sword swept forward, emitting a crazy light together with a fierce airflow. The ocean of skeletons ahead was suddenly split in half by a line. Both the skeletons and their skeleton generals were broken into pieces, scattering across the ground. The power of the slaughtering wind slash left the younger magicians with wide eyes and gaping mouths. The spell had completely cleared a few hundred meters of the path ahead. Chapter 652 Clearing a Path with Brute Force. "Well done, Elder Ling Shi," yelled Han Ji in excitement. It had been a while since Han Ji had participated in a thrilling battle against demon creatures, basically ever since he was promoted to the president of the Clock Tower Magic Association. The endless demon creatures and their surroundings and the fearless comrades at his side reminded him of the battles he had once fought against the sea creatures at the shorelines of the nation. For the ancient capital, the shadowy figure turned out to be a glamorous woman. Her waist was tied with a blue silk cloth. Both her drifting hair and the silk illustrated her determination to kill. She must have been quite a talented beauty back in the days. The woman was the elder of the Hunter Union, Ling Shi. Her status was higher than a senior hunter. Even though she was on the list of authorities that were initially going to be executed, it did not stop her from having the resolve to clear a path for the sake of the ancient city. That spell was the real ultimate of the wind element. Zhang Xiaohu's primary element was wind, too. It was his first time experiencing the strength of a super wind spell. The deadly formation consisted of 1,000 wind blades, and the slaughtering wind slash had almost slashed the ground in half. Zhang Xiaohu always thought wind was more about utilizing its agility to harass his enemies, but after witnessing the attack, he could not help but have a new understanding of the wind element. A real wind magician would leave nothing alive within several hundred meters. The wind blades would simply cut apart every single enemy within their range. Zhang Xiaohu was utterly impressed by that strength. His eyes were filled with the anticipation of achieving the super level. Protection on both sides, full speed ahead. Han Ji's voice came into everyone's ears. Squads of magicians with different magical glows appeared on both sides of the Imperial magicians. Perhaps they were not strong enough to kill hundreds or thousands of undead with a single spell, but when their star orbits and star patterns combined together, the storm of spells they cast could still match the strength of a super spell as they blasted the lines of undead coming from both sides. The place ahead was covered in bones. The Imperial magicians continued to press forward. Elder Ling Shi had cleared a long path ahead, allowing the Imperial magicians to advance smoothly. The water curtains were not a static defense, either. They followed the formation as the magicians moved forward. The blue barriers flowed like waterfalls around Mo Fan, Zhang Xiaohou, Fang Jiyu, and Su Xiaoluo as they advanced, shoving the undead that managed to break through the defense away. Zombies. A large pack of zombies is coming. Some commander's voice echoed in the sky above the army of magicians. Mo Fan and the others had already traveled a kilometer. The land between the inner walls and them was covered in corpses. The spectacular scene was utterly breathtaking. Obviously, clearing the path was not enough. They had just finished slaughtering the skeletons, but a large group of zombies was already heading toward them. They were initially attracted to the small gate where the volunteers were. Either the volunteers were all dead, or the undead commanders with higher intelligence had realized that their group was actually the main force, and had sent the zombies after them. The army of undead was mostly made up of zombies, so the incoming army looked like a black ocean. Whenever they attacked, they would surround their target and isolate it like an island. The path leading back to the city was already blocked off. The mountain zombie is sending the zombies over here. They are coming. Prepare for battle. The commander was a psychic magician, using psychic voice to make sure that everyone could hear him. Glancing into the distance, even though the black tide of zombies was still a few hundred meters away, it felt like they were about to overrun them. The light magicians had barely cleansed the presence of death surrounding them, but a new wave was already spreading in their direction with the zombies. Poison. It's a poison storm. A poisonous storm was sweeping toward the humans before the army of zombies even arrived. The poisonous mist turned into a storm, which rapidly consumed the groups of magicians. The inner city was shaking from the movement of the zombies. The people behind the golden barrier watched the army of magicians being devoured by the poisonous storm. Black everywhere. Even the magical glow surrounding the magicians had disappeared, let alone their tiny figures. It looked like an enormous poisonous beast had just swallowed the whole army of magicians into its stomach. The people felt a chill go down their spines as the place fell into dead silence. Were they wiped out, just like that? I can't see anything, apart from zombies. So it still comes down to this. Leaving the barrier is only going to get us killed. The magicians left behind to guard the city, and the civilians waiting with hope, suddenly fell silent. They could not make any noise despite the strong urge to burst into tears. The small gate was covered in bodies and fresh blood, and the battle to the north had disappeared inside the poisonous storm. The whole city was dumbfounded. There's light, look, there's light. A battle mage standing on the walls suddenly yelled. There's light indeed. The storm is weakening. Oh! It's disappearing. The poisonous storm is disappearing, yelled another battle mage. More people on the walls soon saw the sacred golden light bursting out from the storm. It was like 10,000 golden rays piercing through the body of an enormous poisonous beast. The poisonous storm slowly dissipated, split apart by the light. Golden rays shone upon the magicians. Dense star orbits, star patterns, and star constellations had constructed the most spectacular magic formation on the battlefield, its brilliance lighting up the whole place with a formidable aura. They are fine. The light magicians managed to cleanse the poisonous storm. They are preparing for a counterattack. The first voice erupted from the walls, before it spread further into the inner city and across every street and refugee shelter. The majority of the people were not at the walls, and thus they were unable to see the situation of the battle between the humans and the undead. However, as they listened to the roars of the people on the walls, they could feel their hearts hanging in their throats. The traditional method of spreading the information across the city using shouts made their hearts beat rapidly. Kill them! Kill them all! The ocean of undead was no match for the protectors of mankind. Even though the number of undead was 10, even 100 times higher than that of the magicians, it would never extinguish the raging flames inside the magicians' hearts after their city was invaded. Hail magicians! Hail magicians! Hail magicians! Hail magicians! The magicians had become the people's hope. When the undead was massacring them and trampling their homes, only the magicians were able to butcher these demons. When the people trapped in the inner cities saw the overwhelming number of corpses on the ground and the army of magicians moving into the distance, they completely vented their anger toward the humiliation from the disaster. No one was willing to be trampled on or surrender to the undead. Even when they were at a disadvantage, even after losing half their city, the magicians would surely avenge them. The people were deeply moved by the unyielding magicians and the path they had cleared, and burst into an uproar hot-bloodedly. Who cared if the path could not lead them to dawn?